Welcome to Bite at a Time Books Behind the Story, where we answer the questions you have about your favorite classic authors. What inspired your favorite author to write their novels? What was going on in the world at the time? Follow along with us as we tell you what was happening in the world while your favorite authors wrote your favorite classics. My name is Bree Carlile, and I love to read, and wanted to share my passion with listeners like you. If you enjoy our show, be sure to follow the show on your favorite podcast platform so you get all the new episodes. You can find us on all the social medias at Bite at a Time Books or on our website, biteatatimebooksbehindthestory.com, where you can also sign up for our newsletter for more information on who we're talking about and what's coming next for the podcasts. We're part of the Bite at a Time Books Productions Network. If you'd also like to hear a book by the author we are currently featuring, check out the Bite at a Time Books podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Today we'll be talking about the theatrical career of Oscar Wilde from 1892 to 1895. Salome. The 1891 census records the Wilde residence at 16 Tite Street, now 34, where Oscar lived with his wife Constance and two sons. Not content with being better known than ever in London, though, he returned to Paris in October 1891, this time as a respected writer. He was received at the Salons Littéraires, including the famous Mardis of Stéphane Mallarmé, a renowned symbolist poet of the time. Wilde's two plays during the 1880s, Vera, or The Nihilists, and The Duchess of Padua, had not met with much success. He had continued his interest in the theater, and now, after finding his voice in prose, his thoughts turned again to the dramatic form as the biblical iconography of Salome filled his mind. One evening, after discussing depictions of Salome throughout history, he returned to his hotel and noticed a blank copybook lying on the desk. And it occurred to him to write in it what he had been saying. The result was a new play, Salome, written rapidly and in French. A tragedy, it tells the story of Salome, the stepdaughter of the tetrarch Herod Antipas, who, to her stepfather's dismay but mother's delight, requests the head of Jochanan, John the Baptist, on a silver platter as a reward for dancing the Dance of the Seven Veils. When Wilde returned to London just before Christmas, the Paris Echo referred to him as Le Great Event of the season. Rehearsals of the play starring Sarah Bernhardt began, but the play was refused a license by the Lord Chamberlain since it depicted biblical characters. Salome was published jointly in Paris and London in 1893 in the original French, and in London a year later in Lord Alfred Douglas's English translation with illustrations by Aubrey Beardsley, though it was not performed until 1896 in Paris, during Wilde's incarceration. Comedies of Society. Wilde, who had first set out to irritate Victorian society with his dress and talking points, then to outrage it with Dorian Gray, his novel of vice hidden beneath art, finally found a way to critique society on its own terms. Lady Windermere's Fan was first performed on 20 February 1892 at St. James's Theatre, packed with the cream of society. On the surface, a witty comedy, there is subtle subversion underneath. It concludes with collusive concealment rather than collective disclosure. The audience, like Lady Windermere, are forced to soften harsh social codes in favor of a more nuanced view. The play was enormously popular, touring the country for months, but largely trashed by conservative critics. The success of the play saw Wilde earn £7,000 in the first year alone, equivalent to £961,500,000 in 2023. His first hit play was followed by A Woman of No Importance in 1893, another Victorian comedy revolving around the specter of illegitimate births, mistaken identities, and late revelations. Wilde was commissioned to write two more plays, and An Ideal Husband, written in 1894, followed in January 1895. Peter Raby said these essentially English plays were well pitched. Wilde, with one eye on the dramatic genius of Ibsen and the other on the commercial competition in London's West End, targeted his audience with adroit precision. Queensberry Family. In mid-1891, Lionel Johnson introduced Wilde to Lord Alfred Douglas, Johnson's friend, who was at the time an undergraduate at Oxford. Known to his family and friends as Bosie, he was a handsome and spoiled young man. An intimate friendship sprang up between Wilde and Douglas, and by 1893, Wilde was infatuated with Douglas, and they consorted together regularly in a tempestuous affair. If Wilde was relatively indiscreet, even flamboyant in the way he acted, Douglas was reckless in public. Wilde, who was earning up to £100 a week from his plays, his salary at the Woman's World had been £6, indulged Douglas's every whim, material, artistic, or sexual. Douglas soon initiated Wilde into the Victorian underground of gay prostitution, and Wilde was introduced to a series of young working-class male prostitutes from 1892 onwards by Alfred Taylor. These infrequent rendezvous usually took the same form. Wilde would meet the boy, offer him gifts, dine him privately, and then take him to a hotel room. Unlike Wilde's idealized relations with Ross, John Gray, and Douglas, all of whom remained part of his aesthetic circle, these consorts were uneducated and knew nothing of literature. Soon his public and private lives had become sharply divided. In De Profundis, he wrote to Douglas that it was like feasting with panthers. The danger was half the excitement. I did not know that when they were to strike at me, it was to be at another's piping and at another's pay. Douglas and some Oxford friends founded a journal, The Chameleon, to which Wilde sent a page of paradoxes originally destined for the Saturday Review. Phrases and philosophies for the use of the young was to come under attack 6 months later at Wilde's trial, where he was forced to defend the magazine to which he had sent his work. In any case, it became unique. The Chameleon was not published again. Lord Alfred's father, the Marquess of Queensberry, was known for his outspoken atheism, brutish manner, and creation of the modern rules of boxing. Queensberry, who feuded regularly with his son, confronted Wilde and Lord Alfred about the nature of their relationship several times, but Wilde was able to mollify him. In June 1894, he called on Wilde at 16 Tite Street, without an appointment, and clarified his stance. I do not say that you are it, but you look it and pose at it, which is just as bad. And if I catch you and my son again in any public restaurant, I will thrash you. To which Wilde responded, I don't know what the Queensberry rules are, but the Oscar Wilde rule is to shoot on sight. His account in De Profundis was less triumphant. It was when, in my library at Tite Street, waving his small hands in the air in an epileptic fury, your father stood uttering every foul word his foul mind could think of, and screaming the loathsome threats he afterwards with such cunning carried out. Queensberry only described the scene once, saying Wilde had shown him the white feather, meaning he had acted in a cowardly way. Though trying to remain calm, Wilde saw that he was becoming ensnared in a brutal family quarrel. He did not wish to bear Queensberry's insults, but he knew that confronting him could lead to disaster were his liaisons disclosed publicly. The importance of being earnest. Wilde's final play again returns to the theme of switched identities. The play's two protagonists engage in bun-burying, the maintenance of alternative personas in town and country, which allows them to escape Victorian social mores. The importance of being earnest is even lighter in tone than Wilde's earlier comedies. While their characters often rise to serious themes in moments of crisis, Ernest lacks the by-now-stock Wildean characters. There is no woman with a past. The principals are neither villainous nor cunning. Simply idle cultivés, and the idealistic young women are not that innocent. Mostly set in drawing rooms and almost completely lacking in action or violence, Ernest lacks the self-conscious decadence found in the picture of Dorian Gray and Salome. The play, now considered Wilde's masterpiece, was rapidly written in Wilde's artistic maturity in late 1894. It was first performed on 14 February 1895 at St. James's Theatre in London. Wilde's second collaboration with George Alexander, the actor-manager. Both author and producer assiduously revised, prepared, and rehearsed every line, scene, and setting in the months before the premiere, creating a carefully constructed representation of late Victorian society, yet simultaneously mocking it. During rehearsal, Alexander requested that Wilde shorten the play from 4 acts to 3, which the author did. Premieres at St. James's seemed like brilliant parties, and the opening of The Importance of Being Earnest was no exception. Alan Ainsworth, who played Algernon, recalled to Hesketh Pearson, "In my 53 years of acting, I never remember a greater triumph than that first night." Ernest's immediate reception as Wilde's best work to date finally crystallized his fame into a solid artistic reputation. In a review of the play for the Pall Mall Gazette, H.G. Wells wrote, "More humorous dealing with theatrical conventions it would be difficult to imagine. Mr. Oscar Wilde has decorated a humor that is Gilbertian with innumerable spangles of that wit that is all his own." The Importance of Being Earnest remains his most popular play. Wilde's professional success was mirrored by an escalation in his feud with Queensberry. Queensberry had planned to insult Wilde publicly by throwing a bouquet of rotting vegetables onto the stage. Wilde was tipped off and had Queensberry barred from entering the theater. 15 weeks later, Wilde was in prison. Thank you for joining Bite at a Time Books Behind the Story today, while we answered some of the questions you have about one of your favorite classic authors. Again, my name is Bree Carlile, and I hope you join us next time when we answer more questions about one of your favorite classic authors. If you enjoyed our show, be sure to follow us so you get all the new episodes. We would also love for you to drop us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. You can catch us on all the social medias at Bite at a Time Books, or check out our website, biteatatimebooksbehindthestory.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter. Our show is part of the Bite at a Time Books Productions Network. If you would also like to hear a story by the author we are currently featuring, check out the Bite at a Time Books podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, or on biteatatimebooks.com.